Thank you for inviting me. What I can share with you are my kind of humble experience from the national level when it comes to sustainable development. The council itself was created by Gerhard Schröder as a chancellor, and he listened. When we agreed about the title of my presentation, I never thought how up-to-date it was these days. The title is Keeping People in Their Homes. That's what we all would like to do, keeping refugees in their homes. But it's not possible, because they have no homes anymore. When they're on the flight, they're deprived from their normal environment. And to say a couple of words about this, I think what we do here, what we see here, is a humanitarian help, and it's about ethics and morality in politics, to help these people. Even if it puts the German society and German politicians under significant stress, but I think there is no real way out of it except for proceeding with help and providing these people not only a culture of welcome, but also a culture where they could stay. So there's kind of an anomaly in the title, keeping people in their homes. Yeah, but how? It's a broad issue here. Housing is a broad issue. It's even an issue of geopolitical relevance, I would say. And we have to talk about the change. I mean, keeping means not changing, but change is the agenda of sustainability. So bring these two together is what we try to do in politics. The last remark on the title is there's one P in the title, it's people. And we now know that the sustainability agenda is on 5 Ps, because the planet is limited, and we are already overshooting our resources and the resources of the planet. So it's people and planet. And of course, it's about prosperity of the economy. And we added 2 more Ps, and that is peace and partnership. And all these 5 Ps build up what the United Nations agreed on in September this year, so it's quite recent. They agreed on goals, and one of them is related to cities and to the housing issue, of course. And as you spoke about language and how to frame what you're all up to, I would say this is to the point: make cities inclusive and safe, resilient when it comes to change, and sustainable. And this is one of 17 goals that has been agreed upon in the General Assembly in September after a 2 years phase of intensive negotiations. And that's important. These negotiations was not done by the UN bureaucracy, sorry for the UN Habitat people here, but it was done in an intergovernmental way. So governments of the world, with their constituency, with their audience back home, they decided about these 17 goals. And if you have a closer look to them, they're covering environmental issues, biodiversity issues, the ocean, first time ever that we cover the issue of oceans on the international scene. And they also cover gender and inequality, and the means of implementation that have to go with these goals. Most important point is that they are universe in nature. That means that they apply for countries that we now call developing countries, and they also apply for the OECD world. And every country now is asked to define their bite into these 17 goals, and what they would actually, on the ground in their country, would make out of this. This is what is now happening. Fortunately, Germany has a national sustainable development strategies. Other countries, they do have development plans, and they do have other instruments. Let's not stick with the wording. The basic idea is that we have a strategy that comes with some goals on a national level that then translates into action, and we are measuring these goals. The one goal in Germany that is kind of a proxy for the housing issue is a goal to reduce land consumption. Land is being consumed by the purpose of housing, the purpose of traffic, transportation. And when we started this national SD, Sustainable Development Strategy, in 2002, 1 year after the council has been put in place, we decided that we had to reduce the land being consumed in Germany from 100 and more than 20 hectares per day, being devoted to residential purposes, to 30 hectares per day in 2020. And if you see the graph here, we are far from reaching it, but we do something on this issue. And that issue translates immediately into all kinds of politics that are devoted to densify cities, to converse contaminated land or derelict land within the city, the brownfield issue, of course, and to keep peoples in their homes, so to say. This is the story that I can tell about the German experience when it comes to the housing and in combination to sustainable development. So we have a target, we have something that we deal with the people, that we tell a story. We put a significant amount of money into this, and we are still far from being on the right track towards the goal in 2020. Now we have to come up with a decision how we would align this goal to 2030. And how we would deal with the situation in Germany that we have migrants now that need homes, but we also have an inner German migration that puts stress on these issues. But the inner German migration, the regular migration, that comes with the notion of a swarm city. Are you familiar with this? Like swarm cities like Freiburg, Munich, Stuttgart, Tübingen, Berlin, of course, as well. These are growing cities. Growing against the demographic trends. They are growing. There are other cities, they're shrinking. So we have both sides of the coin in Germany. We have the shrinkage problem and we have the growth problem when it comes to cities. And they all have to provide decent housing for the people that choose to be an inhabitant of this particular city. So what we do, I have nothing against regulation. That's a good idea, if it's a good regulation. Germans in general are great in regulating things, but not all regulations are great. That is why I can present you some action that we are doing as a Council for Sustainable Development. If that council would only repeat what is done on the ground before, then it would not make sense. So our job is to find new ways to connect people and to think a little bit in a different way. That is, you mentioned the trade-off problem in the discussion before, when it comes green belt versus density versus neighborhood and that kind of things. So we are talking to the Lord Mayors on a voluntary basis. We invite Lord Mayors from major cities in Germany to come to us and to discuss on their level, without staff, without some regulating bodies in the back, just to talk from Lord Mayor to Lord Mayor about the issues of housing. And they just came up with a wonderful paper on the housing issue, if you can read it on my website. So these are now 30 Lord Mayors that are voluntarily coming up, and then you can discuss these issues with those people who are generalists. And this is very seldom, very rare in our today's politics. Who is a generalist in the means of politician? They all are siloed in their responsibility. Acting as a generalist and doing the trade-off decisions, only very rare people. And Lord Mayors are one of the groups, of course. We advocate quality architecture. And you see in this building here, that will get an award for sustainable development. It's an old building, it has been retrofitted. And what the architects did was to put in a new facade, in addition to what the building had before. And this new facade is built with photovoltaic energy supply. So this is a energy plus house. And to make it affordable, they added 2 more stories up here. And altogether, this is a house retrofitted up to high standards, and the people that lived before in the house are still living in the house. There are other examples, but what I want to point out is that we have to bring in some new, some positive experiences and stories into the housing community. And when you do this, at least I am doing this, I invented the German Sustainability Award. Give people exposure. Give people that are doing something meaningful for sustainable development, not only writing paper. I mean, papers are good, but at the end of the day, it's about action. And give them exposure to the audience. Make them being seen in their decisions, and their decisions about trade-offs. And that is why we have an annual award ceremony. It's kind of an Oscar-type thing. And we started with awarding companies, enterprises for the Sustainable Award. We added cities, we added Lord Mayors, we added researchers, we added buildings. So now we're creating a community that knows what sustainable development is about, and that is far beyond just the seminar type of sustainability. Also in Germany, conferences, not this one, of course, but the norm, the regular conference on sustainable development is a dull thing. It's kind of boring. And to counterbalance this with some events that are giving a certain momentum, that is what the Council of Sustainable Development is doing. But we are also involved in the certification of new technology standards, architecture standards, when it comes to sustainable development and sustainable building. The German Society for Sustainable Building, DGNB, is strongly linked to our work. We know that we need some dialogue on a new style of urban development. And you're familiar with the German Bauhaus of the 20 years last century. That was a social invention, an innovation. And now, can we think of a green Bauhaus? Would that make sense? Would that be up to date? What does it mean to green the Bauhaus idea? And one of the things that is really very up to date is that we talk as a council to the housing companies. This is very essential, I think. Talk to those who are responsible for the housing in an economic sense, enterprises. And with these, we settled an amendment to the German Sustainability Code. The code itself is a reporting standard for companies. They're going to have to report about their social and ecological criteria in their business case. And we amended this, specified it for the housing industry. So we are talking with the real estate people and the housing industry about this. And the important thing about the code is that it's very robust and simple. It asks you what actually is material for your business case when it comes to sustainable development. Knowing that sustainable development is nothing that fits for all purposes, it has to be tailored to your specific business. And the specific business in the housing industries here, in that case, differs from company to company. In one case, it's prohibiting social erosion in satellite areas. The other one is maybe on prices. The third one is on keeping the greening of quarters, of living areas in a lively way. So what is material for you specifically, and then what are your goals in terms of the environment, economically and socially, and then it provides some other only 20 criteria. And you're invited to make use of this sustainability code for your purposes. And then it works. This is the Märkische Viertel, a satellite quarter in Berlin, has to be retrofitted in energetically high standards, done with a sustainability approach by the company of Bauhaus here in Germany. The challenge that we are struggling with is that we seem to know more about coffee machines and the lifespan of coffee machines than we know about the lifespan of housing, of buildings. I mean, you as experts, you know everything about the life cycle of housing. But in a general term, the simple idea that a house has a life cycle, and it has to be financed over the life cycle, not only the building itself, that is something new in the community. And we have to increase knowledge about the life cycle of houses. We also need to tackle the baseline of the driving forces for housing. We started in 2002 with the Sustainable Development Strategy. We had, on average in Germany, 38 square meters per capita, apartment-wise, house-wise, whatever. They live on 38 square meters. Now, every people in Germany, on the average, lives on 45 square meters. Will that continue? Is that wise to let it continue? Can we change it? What is the basic driver of this development? Is it demand or is it supply? Is it prosperity or is it just by chance? So this is what we're going to have to improve our understanding about. And then that's just for the German part of the audience. I will not translate this literally, but this sign means it's a language gag on out-of-the-box thinking. And that's exactly what we need. Out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to the housing issue, putting people together that are taken out of their siloed workload day-to-day wise. I have a couple of papers on this, including the Lord Mayor's paper, and you will find everything on the website, and I encourage you to look at it. Thank you very much for your attention.